how's it going? Oh, I guess I don't have to yell. I remembered to put on my microphone today. Okay, so I'm doing two shows today. I'm going to talk about, and they are, as you can see, Cheyenne season 3, episode 12, The Empty Gun, and also at the same time, The High Chaparral, season 4, episode 10, Fiesta. And I picked those two episodes because I was conscious of the fact that when I talk about the women's series or the talks about women being portrayed in media and how that looks and how it reflects in society and back. And so I realized that there is absolutely a case to be made for, what men might have to say in their situation or in their position in the same situation. And so I am not one of those. So obviously, I have to go on, what my experience has taught me and just what I've paid attention to. And so here I go. I feel like men have it, as hard as women do as far as, what's expected of them and what they're like indoctrinated into believing they are and what they're supposed to do from a very early age, just like girls and women. So the first show, Cheyenne, is about how Cheyenne and a gunfighter sort of come to understand each other as human beings, and their outward projections that we put on each other or appearances are just like the beginning, just the outer shell of your M&M person. So the gunfighter found himself trapped in his life because there's always someone looking to come along behind him or in front of him and outdo him as a gunfighter. So, like, you're constantly under threat of, murderous ambush or right in front of your face, attack. And that's got to be stressful. Like, you can never relax, and you never know if the person you're talking to is angling to get you in a position where they can, outdo you, and that amounts to you being dead if you're the gunfighter. And I thought that was kind of like a metaphor, really. But in the show, the gunfighter wants to go back to the home of the woman that he loved a long time ago, but he lost to another man. And the other man ends up being another person that the gunfighter has to put down because there was some tussle. I'm not really like going into like what happened in the episode too much because I just kind of want to stick to what I'm talking about. So the gunfighter wants to go back and return some money that the woman is owed that he ended up with. I guess doesn't matter. He's returning money to the woman, the widow of the man he killed, and the widow has a son, and the son is like a teen. I think they say he's 16, and he is so angry that this guy is here, and he just wants to like get out there and shoot him himself, and everybody's going, man, you've never done this. Like, he's a professional gunfighter. You're gonna lose. But he can't be talked out of it, of course, because that's what he feels like he has to do. And plus, he's hurt because he lost his daddy. And here is the guy that is responsible. So, 2 and 2. So that's a shame that he felt like he had to take that upon himself, but I know that's how guys are in reality. They all of a sudden feel like they have to shoulder all this stuff and responsibilities, and whether they're, at the age where they're capable, or regardless of age, capable or not. I don't know if this is 100% true, but I know many of them decide they're going to be the man of the house, so to speak, and that is more than they realize they're taking on if they're young, especially. Um, and it was really like touching in the episode where the gunfighter was sitting down with Cheyenne, because Cheyenne wears a gun for protection because he was out on the frontier and you kind of had to, unless you're like a fast talker, I guess. Um, but he was often mistaken for like a bounty hunter or a gunfighter, and both of those in like all of these shows I've been watching are looked down upon by civilized society. But then civilized society is the first to want to string up a gallows and not wait for the, you know, judge that comes once a month or whatever it is. They get the mob mentality, and it all civilization goes out the window. So, but Cheyenne is like an army scout, and he was raised by Cheyenne when they killed his family and like took him in as their own, and I guess named him Cheyenne, which seems weird, but whatever, it's in the script. So basically Cheyenne's a good guy, but he gets mistaken for being a gunfighter often because these people just in the shows, much like in reality, jump to crazy conclusions before they have all information. And back then, I'm seeing they wanted to string people up in a minute or shoot them and like not wait for the judge, and just like I said, like all civilization goes out the window. So Cheyenne and the gunfighter have occasion to sit down and eat a meal in like a cantina, because the gunfighter's been released from prison, and he's come back to this town where the widow is his, who actually turns out is his ex-lover, and the sheriff of the town is someone he grew up with because he's from the town, the gunfighter. And he's like, "You gotta get out of here because you're a gunfighter." Like, I don't even care why. He's like, "Yeah, but I just got out of prison. I haven't done nothing yet. And I want to have like a piece of business I want to do here. It doesn't involve guns." And the sheriff is like, "Yeah, well, you better hurry up and do it and then get GTFO." So, like the gunfighter is like, he's trying to do good. He knows that what he's done is frowned upon by everyone, and he just wants to feel like he can do something good for a change. So, and I just want to qualify here that the gunfighters in these shows, like, they're not all just bloodthirsty killers. They're just, you know, they could be like law enforcement or army or whatever. They're just good with a gun, and it gets like the macho competitive juices flowing, and they're like sharks. They're like, "Oh, tough guy, I gotta try to go up against within the TMZ," and they go after him. And well, yeah, that's got to be like a lot when you're just trying to like do whatever, and there's always somebody like lurking around the corner waiting to kill you. Like, "Ooh, what a life! How fun!" So the gunfighter says, as he sat down with Cheyenne, that it is like a privilege and a gift and all these wonderful things to be able to sit down face to face with someone and just talk over a meal, like just regular, like, "How's the weather? How are your kids?" Just like mundane, bland, human fiber, regular stuff. And well, that really struck upon me. I mean, that really struck me that like that's where I felt like it's the metaphor. It's like I know they say it all the time, like men in life, that like we have all these responsibilities, and we have to do this and we have to do that, and the women, we have to do this and that and the other thing for them if we want them to do this, that, and the other thing for us, and like whatever the back and forth is about it. they do have expectations placed upon them by society. We expect various things from them, different things from different women, of course, and their families, their fathers, all of the men, and it's a lot. Like women got it, men got it. It's rough. I get it. So I mean, that's what I felt like the gunfighter represented. And then, like in the end, he pretended like the boy who finally like found some way to get away from everybody that was trying to prevent him from having a gunfight with this guy. And the guy was like not even wanting to have a fight with this kid because he knew that he would just get him. So he sacrificed himself by saying he would give the kid the first shot, and then he gave the kid the first shot, and then he pretended like the kid missed, and went up and like smacked him with his hand rather than shooting him, and said, "Get out of here, man! You don't even know what you're doing." But it turned out the kid actually got him. So, like, the kid got to get his little rock off, and the gunfighter was then able to give the money to Cheyenne to pay the widow, and the gunfighter died, but he was like philosophically happy, I think, in the end, because he got to do he wanted to do one good thing, and he got to do a couple. Like, he didn't let the kid think that he murdered him, which is what everybody was trying to prevent the kid from doing. Was like, you don't come back from that. Once you cross that line of having killed someone, that's major. And no one, even an adult, doesn't get like how impactful it can be on your whole life and psyche and personality, and like it can totally change you and or wreck you. So that was the first show. What am I doing on time here? Oh, good. So the second show was the High Chaparral, and that usually involves a whole ensemble cast, but this particular episode really only starred Buck Cannon, that's the character's name, and he's the brother of the owner of the High Chaparral Ranch, which the show is about, and all of the people on there. So not this one was not about all of the people, and it was about Buck, who is the brother of the owner of the ranch, like I said, but he works as like a cowboy for the ranch, and he decides that he's going to take this trip, I guess have some me time, and not go with his buddy from the cast, and go from Tucson, Arizona, where they live, or somewhere around Tucson, down to Mexico to a town called Fiesta that was having a fiesta, I think was the deal. Um, and on his way there, he stops in some town to go to the cantina or whatever to get a drink, and catches sight of some kind of fight happening in this cantina. And he asks the bartender, "Is it a cockfight?" And he says, "No, it's a boy fight." And he's like, "A what now?" And he goes over and he looks, and there's two little boys beating the crap out of each other. And on one side is a bunch of Mexicans, on the other side is a bunch of gringo cowboys from a nearby ranch there in Mexico. And each one of them have a boy that they're fighting. And the Mexicans are led by this character that's a bad hombre, I'll just say that. And he and the Cowboys have basically made a practice of taking these boys who are both orphans, and I guess there's like a whole gang of them somewhere, that both factions of adults are using to fight each other and gamble on. And so Buck walks in and sees that, and he's like, "Oh, no, 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 this is not good." And the bartender's like, "Oh, no, don't." The boy that was losing was a very slim and small, slender. He was a slender child, and shorter than his opponent that the Cowboys had, and it was this larger, huskier, taller, huskier kid, and he was just wailing on this little guy, and the little guy was also starving. Like, the guy that was his captor. I don't know what else to call him, but he was sort of like his boxing manager, I guess, in the fighting part. But he basically owned him, just like the Cowboys pretty much owned the other kid. And the Cowboys talked like they had a whole like little stable of orphan boys stashed away. Which, yikes! Thing about these shows is they don't like come out and say stuff that we'd say today. Like on this, I was watching an episode of Wagon Train, and they were doing a. They didn't say that it was the Donner Party going over the Donner Pass, but it was very much like that story, and they tiptoed around the whole cannibalism thing by saying that one guy survived because he was stealing all the food from everybody else. And I'm like, yeah, he was stealing it off their bodies, but they didn't just come out and say stuff back then. So back to the cowboys and the slave boys and the stable of boys, I'm just like, oh, that is no bueno down in Mexico. Like, that's bad news anywhere you're doing it, whoever's doing things like that. And hi, welcome to Disclosure. How many years have you been seeing stories where there's like a bunch of kids held somewhere for nefarious purposes? And I always say, people are asking for disclosure. I'm like, you've been getting exposure for years, like the space movies and this cowboy stuff, and all through the generations from like these shows from the 50s and 60s that I'm talking about to now. They've all been kind of talking about the same stuff over and over all this time. Like, yeah, this stuff is stupid and rot your mind, and it's also trying to tell you something. It's like, also, it's, yes, it's programming you, but it's also trying to tell you something. If you just can like see your way through the BS, like, yes, suspend reality, but also like pick up a few hints, notice some things. Sorry, I just saw something earlier today from one of my spiritual channeling sites, and this particular one has never been wrong. In I've been listening to them for at least 4 years now, and they just haven't been wrong about the stuff that they talk about. And it's not political predictions and stuff like that. It's more you know human level, based on everyone, and never mind titles and all that stuff. So the source today said that oh, well, okay, the thing about them too is they don't ever say something that is not widely known until it is actually out somewhere in the public domain. So I haven't heard this that he was talking about. The channel comes through a man, so I refer to it as he. So but the entity was saying that there's like farms where they have captive young girls, and there's baby farms for the purpose of raising children for abuse. And so this is something that you will have heard as crazy stuff from QAnon. And yeah, it is crazy. But like I've always said, some of the stuff they say is whacked out, and I just can't go there with them. And a bunch of it is perfectly reasonable. So, that said, that's not your only source for this stuff that we've had for many years now. I mean, it's not specific to that degree, but we've known about human trafficking. It's not just QAnon screaming about that. I remember for years being able to see on shows like Dateline or 48 Hours, the news magazine shows on the big broadcast networks, they would talk about people that have been kidnapped and trafficked. And for some reason in the news it's always just women and girls, but it happens to boys and men too. Like, don't kid yourself. We are a depraved world we made for ourselves here. But okay, so like they tiptoe around that. Back to the high chaparral, they tiptoe around the fact that these cowboys have like a whole group of boys stashed away, and you're doing what with them? Just fighting? I don't know. That seems improbable with the temptation there. And that's the other thing about these shows. Oh shoot, I gotta hurry up. they're out there on the prairie, and everybody's got to use a gun because, or else, like I said, they're powerfully persuasive, and people do mind their P's and Q's. But I'm thinking a lot more untoward things happen to like women just out like picking peas or whatever, and some dude or dudes ride up and they haven't got none for a while, or they got some 5 minutes ago, but whatever. Here's an unattended woman, and she's small, and there's 10 of us, or there's one of us. Like you think that, hello, ma'am, how are you doing? Oh, hello, sir. How often do you think that held up to people that were determined to just take what they wanted? Like, I'm just sort of more and more realizing what a nightmare it must have been to live in those days. The sanitary conditions, the medical lack of knowledge, the lack of mod cons, indoor toilets, stuff like that. Whoa. And then you have to grow up in the middle of that and be like a prim and proper little woman, or a gentleman, or a soldier, or like, ah. But it's not so different from today, really. But yeah, that so Buck got sidetracked quickly. I gotta finish here. Buck is trying to go to Fiesta to just like go and enjoy a fiesta in Fiesta, and he's told the boy, "Well, I want to take you with me," but he ends up taking the boy from the fighting host or ringleader guy. And the bartender has warned Buck, like, this guy is crazy. He'll come after you. He won't just give up this boy. It's his bread and butter. And Buck's like, yeah, I don't care. It's just wrong. Which, good. Like, it was a good thing. Like, yes, remove that child from that, pounding and beating and slavery and starvation. It was just like, what a terrible life. Of course. Yes, take him away. So he's trying to, along the way to Fiesta, he's told the boy, I don't want to bring you with me because he wants to party and get down or whatever. I want to find you some appropriate place for you to be, like a family where you can just be a kid and you can be loved. And like, where you live right now is terrible. And the boy keeps saying, I'm not afraid. And he's this little scrawny little thing is like, well, it just sounds like you're saying you're scared to death. And, he was, but here's this little boy who's been getting the crap kicked out of him and really doesn't say much, because if he does, he'll get the crap kicked out of him by this man. And, like maybe not giving any more food than the little measly bit that apparently he was getting. They found a skinny kid for this role. And he does find a place for this kid along the way, but it turns into a showdown because the crazy slave master guy follows them. And then he's like, I don't even care anymore. I just want to kill the kid and Buck. And like at some point, someone's realized like who Buck is and where he's from, and they're like, "Oh man, maybe you don't want to kill this guy." And captive guy is like, "I don't care. I hate them all." And so then he decides, and then I'm going to kill this farmer and all of his family. And the farmer's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! We don't even know you, man. Yeah, he brought him out to you. You can have him." And he told Buck he was going to do this, and Buck was like, "Fair enough," because the farmer didn't even have a gun. Like, I talked about in the last video I made about there being a pacifist. This guy was even more passive. But the way it worked out was they kind of injured Buck, and he couldn't defend everybody in just being a single gunman to like a few more against him, like 3-1 or something. And when Buck goes down, the farmer is just like, well, you're not going to just like take my family and kill them and burn up the house. Because if you think they were just going to kill them and that was it, like, hi, we're just going to politely murder you and nothing else is going to go down. It's perfectly fine. Just turn your back to the wall and we'll shoot you. I think there'd be a little more to it than that, like I was saying a minute ago. But the farmer nuts up and snatches up Buck's gun and is like, pow, 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 and kills everybody. He's like, you are not taking my home. And then Buck gets to leave, but he ends up just going back home. And that's basically the end of the episode. But the boy gets a good home. He's glad to be with the farmers. The farmer is glad to have him. Like, he's got kids, everybody's happy. And then Buck ends up going home because, like, he's probably tired out. But and then Buck did like what he would have been expected to do in civilized society, which would be to rescue that poor child. So it just gave me like an insight on what like men are going through, and I wasn't. I mean, I've been thinking about it, like covering the subject, but it just kind of happened. Like it's not even I can't even organize it. It just keeps happening before I can even like stuff comes and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do it on that. Like forget what I have planned, but that's okay. That's the whole spirit part of the spirit TV business. Okay, didn't want to give the fellas short shrift, so this has been an episode devoted to their plight and the crap that they have to go through just to get from boys to men and make it halfway sane or better. Everything is not terrible, by the way. I just want to say, and to lighten things up at the end of this, because okay, I'm almost done. Just want to quickly say that manifestation is happening, boy. So just like you have to have noticed things like these two incidents I just had. I have been missing my teeth recently, and then I found them, and what I really was jonesing for, which I haven't gotten yet, but was dry roasted peanuts, which I could not have eaten without teeth. And so, and then for some reason, I saw or read something, but I knew about these and I've always been curious. I've been thinking about boiled peanuts. So, a lot of times, I shop at a few different places, but I do a lot of shopping at Walmart, and I know they have a southern section. And when I feel like mustard greens, that's where I'll go because I don't like to make them from scratch, really. And I never find them frozen anywhere. And I just happened to one day see they had them in a can in their little southern section. So I was in there the other day for some other stuff, and we went by it, and there was boiled peanuts. And I've wanted boiled peanuts for